Perfect. All right. Well, we will get rolling here. How's everyone doing? Good to see everyone, at least virtually. Still kind of getting used to this whole Zoom thing, but happy to be here with you folks this afternoon. So I'll be kind of steering the ship here. My name's Mitchell Mack. All of you can just call me Mitch for short. I'm the business development manager for Collette. So I'm the Ohio guy. I cover basically all of Ohio, West Virginia. I've been with Collette for a little over 7 years now. So I love to travel. I love to talk about travel. I think it's a great part of life. I've been with the company for 7 years and had the opportunity to visit 33 different countries. So we as reps, we say we know because we go. We can go and actually experience these destinations and be able to come back and talk about them with a little bit more professionalism rather than, just basically selling the trip out of our basement and pretending like we know. We've got firsthand knowledge and experience of the country. So before we get into the actual tour, show of hands, has anyone in the room ever been on a Collette tour before or maybe heard of Collette? Okay, so for those, couple of people. For those of you that aren't familiar with us, we're an escorted tour company. So when I say escorted tour, I like to think of it as thoughtless travel, because when we get up in the morning, we don't have to think about, all right, what are we going to do? What are we going to see? How are we going to get there? In the case of Ireland, what side of the road are they driving on? Because they drive on the left-hand side compared to the right-hand side here in the States. So you just make a whole lot better use of your time in the destination. You're not worrying about having to plan and map out your day, who's going to have to drive that day. None of it. You just sit back, relax, and let us do the worrying for you, essentially. And as a company, our guests that come back, they consider the entire overall experience to be a 4.5 to 5 star. But in terms of the hotels that we're using, it's all 4-star properties or better. And we do have some very, very good hotels on this tour. We even, we feel like you can't go all the way to Ireland and not include a castle stay as well. So I'll get to the castle experience towards the end of the tour. So no Motel 6s or anything like that where they're leaving the light on for you. Nothing against Motel 6, but we find that our guests, they want a little bit more of an elevated level of quality when it comes to the tours, because a lot of, these trips are bucket list trips, and we send people all over the world. We've got 160 tours that visit all 7 continents, and we've been doing it for 104 years now. So we've got the experience, and we know kind of what the guests like. We listen to the feedback, so we put together professionally planned itineraries. We're not a nickel and dime company, so the majority of the touring and sightseeing is already included right into the price of your tour. We include a good portion of meals, so you'll always have breakfast daily, dinners, and we like to leave a couple of nights open for dinner. As great as the group may be, we understand that a couple of nights you want to get away from the group, have a meal with, spouse, friend, whoever you might be traveling with, and kind of make the trip exactly what you want it to be, rather than it being overly structured. We try and find a healthy balance between touring and sightseeing and then leisure time. We are known as having some of the best tour managers in the industry. The reason being, the majority of them are full-time employees of us. And if you think about it, this is an escorted tour. So if you don't have somebody who's knowledgeable, who's personable, who knows the area inside and out and can really bring the destination to life, you don't end up having a good tour. So we put a heavy emphasis on the folks that are actually leading and guiding our guests when they're in country. And I mean, the guides really make or break the trip, in my opinion. You can stay in the greatest hotels, have the greatest meals, impressive touring and sightseeing, but if you don't have somebody who's knowledgeable, who's showing you around, that really sours the tour. So you're going to have a professional tour manager meet you in Dublin, and they're going to be with you every step of the way until we drop you off at the airport at the end of the trip. So in a nutshell, that's what we're all about as Collette. So without further ado, everyone can raise their seat backs, their tray tables to their upright positions, as we are finally ready to make our way over to Ireland. Now, my goal here today is to help paint as best of a picture of all the things that we're going to see, what we're going to do over the course of this tour. Why do we go and visit certain areas? A little bit of history, just to kind of wet your whistle without sounding like a history book, and just give you the lay of the land. But if you've traveled with Collette before, you kind of know as a company that we really truly do, under promise and over deliver on the tours. There's so many things that the tour managers go above and beyond to add that weren't necessarily in the upfront itinerary, but they just added along the way just to enhance the guest experience. But a quick look at the tour at a glance. I'm not going to go too much into detail. I just want you to understand how to read the map here. We're going to be starting out in Dublin. We're going to be doing 2 nights in Dublin. Wherever you see the gray circles on the map, those are the day trips. So when we go and see Cashel, Blarney Castle, the Dingle Peninsula, those will be day trips. We do 2 nights in beautiful scenic Killarney, 1 night in Ennis. We take a trip out to see the Cliffs of Moher, and then we finish up staying on a little shack in King's Court, if you will. But we're going to start out the tour at the Hotel Rio. It's the Grisham Dublin. It's a 4-star hotel, fantastic location right in the heart of Dublin for 2 nights now. So again, we put a heavy emphasis on where we put our guests. We don't want you to be a half hour, 45 minutes out of the city. When you think about, all right, we have to get transportation to get into the city, transportation to get back out of the city, that's a good hour to an hour and a half out of your day that you just waste on transportation. With us, we put you right in city center. So you're within walking distance of all the shops, restaurants. You're a 25-minute walk away from St. Patrick's Cathedral. Only a short 15-minute walk to St. Stephen's Green, which is an iconic park right in the heart of the city. So we're going to start to be introduced to some of the sites that Dublin has to offer. The tour opens up in what's considered to be the Fair City. It's going to be the largest city that we'll see throughout this tour. It's Ireland's capital, and it's a central hub for just about everything. I mean, Ireland as a country, it truly does have a little bit of something for everything, whether it be natural beauty, whether it be history, the culture, if you're a beer fan, the Guinness, if you're a whiskey fan, good old Irish whiskey. So there's truly, truly something for everyone when it comes to Ireland as a destination. So we'll start to be introduced to that through, learning about the Book of Kells at Trinity College, starting to see some of the local musicians and performers, performing in the streets. We're going to start out our tour now. When we get into Dublin, we don't have a lot planned on that first day. It's a travel day. The last thing that we want is to run our guests ragged, get off the plane. You're already a little jet lagged, and then, go. So the first afternoon when you get in is completely free. If you want to take a quick little nap, I recommend it being shorter rather than longer, just so your internal clock doesn't get all thrown off. Or if you want to start doing some touring and sightseeing, your tour manager can point you in the right direction. But later tonight, we're going to officially gather for the first time as a group. We're going to visit Christchurch Cathedral. So why do we go and start out at Christchurch Cathedral? One, it's one of Dublin's most historic buildings that it has to offer. And when people think churches in terms of Ireland, they always think St. Patrick's Cathedral. Yes, it is the crown jewel of the city, but a lot of people don't realize that Christchurch is actually older than St. Patrick's. It was built in the 11th century, so hundreds and hundreds of years of history behind the church. It's situated right in the center of medieval Dublin. So I mentioned some of that medieval history. We're going to start to be introduced to it right away. So we're going to go into the church, have a fantastic tour of the inside, and then we're actually going to go beneath into the church's crypt underneath the cathedral. This is where we're going to kind of toast for cocktails. We've got some light refreshments, and it's just a good way to toast and start the trip off on a good note before we really start our touring and sightseeing the next day. So we're going to start out on the iconic streets of O'Connell Street, Grafton Street. Along these streets, you're going to see rows of these beautiful, spectacular Georgian townhomes. You'll start to be introduced to all of the different bars. Dublin's only got about 770 different bars and pubs throughout. So always a fun experience to pop into one of the local pubs. The locals are very open, very welcoming, very friendly. Ireland as a country is just such an easy destination for us to visit as Americans. It is English speaking throughout, even though with that thick Irish accent, it might not sound like English all the time, but trust me, they are speaking English. So for the shoppers in the room, we'll have a chance to stroll up and down Grafton Street, which is known to be the quote unquote shopping street of Dublin. Lots of local popular stores, local shops that line walkways. And then we give you a little bit of free time when you're in Dublin to just go off on your own, make the trip exactly what you want it to be. If you don't mind giving up a little bit of that leisure time, there's only two different optional tours that we have on this experience. And one of them is the Guinness Storehouse. So if you do the Guinness Storehouse option, it's not taking the place of any of the other touring and sightseeing. It's just adding to your experience and replacing some of the free time. So if you don't mind giving up a little bit of free time, I think the Guinness Storehouse is an absolute must for a first timer to Ireland. Even if you're not a big beer drinker, just the history behind the storehouse and it being, a staple of the Irish culture, so much history behind it. So if you do decide to do the storehouse, we'll go throughout. It'll be an escorted tour. You'll learn all about the brewing process, the history of Guinness, and then at the top, you have some fantastic 180-degree views of the city. It's one of the best lookout points that Dublin has to offer. So we'll get up there. After you learn about how it's brewed, we get to sample some of the finished product. And one thing that I've learned, because I am a beer drinker every now and then, and it's a night and day difference, the Guinness between what you get here in the United States and what Guinness tastes like in Dublin. It's just so much fresher. There's almost no comparison. So the way that you pour the Guinness is actually very important as well. So you'll learn all about how to do the perfect pour. You can try your hand at it yourself, and if you get the perfect pour, you get a nice little certificate to bring home that basically you're a Guinness brew master and you learned how to do the perfect pour. Even if you don't get it perfect the first time, they'll still give you the certificate to come back. And then afterwards, we actually go next door to a local restaurant for a traditional Irish evening. So lots of singing and dancing. The Irish are a very happy, very energetic group of people. So after a couple of the Guinnesses during the tour, it's pretty common for our guests to get up and dance along during this traditional Irish night, followed by a very traditional meal. If you are interested in doing the Guinness Storehouse option and the traditional Irish night, the cost is $115 per person. If you don't decide to do it, no worries. You just have the rest of that afternoon here before we start getting into some of the natural beauty that Ireland has to offer. Dublin was the major city. Now we're going to start to get into the countryside, start to see some of the areas outside of that big city feel. So you start to see, these rolling hills, all of the greenery. You're a lot more likely to be caught up in a traffic jam that's caused by sheep rather than cars, because in terms of the sheep to people, it's almost a 1-to-1 ratio in the country. So we're going to make our way to the town of Cashel, and more specifically, we're going to have an escorted tour of the historic Rock of Cashel, which is the iconic location where St. Patrick preached and also converted the at one time King of Munster. So St. Patrick's story is going to start to be brought to life by our tour manager. And according to legend, it was the rock. This location is the site where St. Patrick was said to have banished Satan from the area. So it does play a very historical big part in terms of significance of the Irish culture. And then I mentioned castles. We've got a number of different castles in store for the group on this tour. One of the most famous, the most iconic is, of course, the Blarney Castle. Built in the 1200s, hundreds and hundreds of years of history. It was restored in the 15th century, but kept that original 12th century architecture intact. And one of the iconic things to do, of course, in addition to touring the grounds of the castle, we'll make our way up to the top, where if you'd like to, you do have a chance to hang upside down and kiss the famous Blarney Stone. Now, The Blarney Stone there's a legend behind it, or a myth, if you will. It is said to, if you kiss the Blarney Stone, legend says that, those who do it are bestowed the gift of eloquence or the gift of gab, the talkers in the room. So there's many different, myths and stories how the rock got its mystical powers. Most believe that there was a witch that was drowning nearby, and one of the villagers saved them. So the witch bestowed upon this stone in this castle the gift. Whoever would kiss the stone would get the gift of eloquence. Again, it's a myth. You never know what's actually true and what's just rumor. But regardless, if you would like to, you have a chance to kiss the Blarney Stone, get the gift of eloquence. They did make this experience a heck of a lot safer nowadays. They didn't used to have, the railing and bars that people could safely hang upside down, essentially, to kiss that Blarney Stone. You essentially had to rely and hope that you had a good friend that would hold your ankles to hold you up from not slipping between the cracks. Now we've modernized it, luckily. So even if you don't kiss the Blarney Stone, it's not a big deal. It is kind of a touristy thing to do, but the rest of the castle is absolutely spectacular in terms of the overall experience. And then we're going to arrive into Killarney, where we're going to start to see some of the best natural beauty over the course of this tour. We're going to be introduced to the food scene at one of the city's best local restaurants. And so, whenever you see a dinner included, a meal included in your itinerary, you do not have to worry about tipping for those included meals. Tipping is already included for the meals that are included into the itinerary up front. So just look at on the meals, we're going to start to see why Killarney is known as, being one of the most naturally beautiful areas in all of Ireland. The first location that we're going to set off and see during the touring is going to be the Dingle Peninsula. It's the most iconic scenic route along the peninsula and coastline. It's a peninsula that stretches about 30 miles. So you're going to have a chance to, just sit back, relax, see some of these rocky shores, the high mountains, the beautiful Atlantic Ocean crashing up against, the bluffs, hundreds of different birds that call these cliffs home. This is a day that, I definitely don't mind being on the bus. When you can just sit back, relax, you've got all of this natural beauty around you, and then you've got the tour manager who's really just bringing the area and the destination to life. There's no better way to, in my opinion, experience an area when it comes to the natural beauty. So our touring is going to take us to the Gap of Dunlow. So why do we stop at the Gap of Dunlow? One, for the shoppers in the room, it's the best place that you can find very traditional Irish goods. A lot of them handcrafted by local artisans in the area. It's a place that's naturally beautiful as well. It's a narrow mountain passageway that was formed 25,000 years ago during an ice age. So some history behind the area. 5 different gorgeous lakes located all throughout the Gap. But for the drinkers in the room, the wine fans in the room, this is the place that a very popular local delicacy basically came from, and that was mead wine. So mead wine is, this traditional, it's Irish wine. It is a little bit stronger than the traditional wine that we might be used to, and it's a very unique drink, sugary, sweet. It's made from white wine, honey, and herbs all mixed together, called mead. Said to have been, first made in secret by the Irish monks. So the monks are basically where the wine got its start, and now it's become a very popular Irish drink. So if you hear Irish wine and it's on the menu, it's more than likely mead wine that you're going to be seeing. So you'll be introduced to it here at the Gap of Dunlow, and then we'll travel to the town of Dingle, drive along, the beautiful sleigh road. It's the path is home to some of the best lookout points. So even on the travel days, we're still making stops. We're never on the motor coach any more than an hour and a half, 2 hours at a time, but we're always making stops at some of these lookout points, some places that have the best photo opportunities. And one of my favorite parts about travel, and maybe you'll agree with me, is having the chance to really immerse yourself in the local culture, meet some of the local people, hear their stories, their culture, their traditions. So we've got a really good cultural immersion opportunity arranged for you folks during this tour when we visit the Moana dairy farm. It's a family-owned dairy farm, and we've been working with this family for years and years now. They're such an amazing people that welcome us basically into their home with open arms. They show you all throughout the farm, tell you, what life is like to be a traditional dairy farmer in Ireland. And like I said, very open, very welcoming. So have, coffee, scones, so we'll have a chance to sit down with the family after the tour, enjoy some nice refreshments, and just get to hear, their story, how it's been family owned and run for 3 generations, some of the trials and hardships that they've been through over the years. And you just come away with it and being like, wow, that was a really neat and authentic experience, something that maybe if I was doing it on my own, I wouldn't be able to necessarily organize, cultural immersion opportunity like that. So we'll leave the Moana Dairy Farm, and then we're going to get to when I talk to people, this is the number one thing that they have on their bucket list. They say, if I'm going to see one thing in Ireland, I want it to be this, and that's the just breathtaking cliffs of Moher. These, iconic 700-foot cliffs that give you just unbelievable, just mouth-dropping views of the Atlantic, the Aran Islands. The cliffs themselves are over 350 million years old, and they stretch for 5 miles along the coastline. And this really is, this is a bucket list opportunity. It's one of the areas that you see and it almost just takes your breath away. The sheer size, the beauty, and just the backdrop, everything that the cliffs have to offer. In fact, I actually did pre-pandemic, I had a group that was traveling to this exact tour, and we had a document meeting held for the group. The now husband, was at the meeting. His girlfriend at the time was not, so he basically announced to the group that he had planned on proposing to his girlfriend at the cliffs of Moher, because it was just like, it was that picture perfect, that iconic of a place to get on the knee and, one of the biggest moments of their life. Luckily, she did say yes, or else it would have been a long rest of the tour for that couple. But that kind of speaks to, just how amazing and how iconic this area is. And you'll have a chance to capture a picture of the famed, O'Brien's Tower. It marks the highest point of the cliffs, where visitors have stood for hundreds and hundreds of years over the course of history. And then we're going to have a chance to, after a great day of touring and sightseeing, check into our hotel in Ennis, which we're going to be here for one night. Ennis is a charming little town. Its name translates to island, in Irish, which is kind of weird because it's not an island at all, but it is located on the River Fergus. And we're going to be staying in the Old Ground Hotel in Ennis. It's considered to be one of the best examples in the area of, fine Irish hospitality. So we're not roughing it at any point, so to speak, during the course of this tour. So we've so far talked about, your Mead Wine, natural beauty, some history, some architecture. We're missing one thing that Ireland is very, very well known for, and that is Irish whiskey. So today we're going to have a chance to get into Irish whiskey territory. And the word whiskey actually comes from the Gaelic word. It means water of life. I mean, back in the day when the water wasn't, as purified and good for us as it is now, they almost preferred to drink, either Guinness or whiskey, because it was actually, they considered it to be better for them. So they consider it the water of life. Everyone knows, when it comes to whiskey, the most common is Jameson. So back in the 1970s, Ireland only actually had one kind of whiskey, and that was Jameson. So it wasn't till, relatively speaking, recently that they really expanded the whiskey scene and the different products that, are exported from Ireland. So you'll learn all about the industry, the whiskey making process. Even if you're not a whiskey drinker, you still enjoy the tour. It is, our culture. So we'll learn all about the ingredients, have a chance, if you are a drinker, to sample some of the finished product. It's just so smooth, is what I found. That good, smooth Irish whiskey. If you want to bring some home as a souvenir, We offer this at the end of the tour because I find if you're doing a whiskey tour at the beginning and your plan is to bring some back as a souvenir, it ends up being so good and you like it so much that the bottle ends up not making it back with you on the back end of the trip. So you have a chance, if you'd like to bring some good quality Irish whiskey back for a souvenir. And then we're going to be checking in. I mentioned just kind of briefly, I teased at the beginning that we do have a castle stay. So we're going to be checking into our shack for the final night. It's this iconic, oh, sorry, no, there's our little shack that we're going to be staying in, the Cobra Castle. It's this iconic castle with history dating back to the 1700s. The grounds are absolutely amazing. They stretch over 100 acres throughout. And, the castle, it does have this old world feel without, the amenities being stuck in the 1700s, because they have, re-renovated it and got it into this century, so to speak. But, how cool is it to go to Italy and come back and say, yeah, not only did we have a chance to see, Cashel and the Blarney Castle, but we actually stayed in a castle at the Cobra Castle in King's Court the very last night of our trip. There's no better way to wrap the trip up on a good note. So you can see, inside it has been renovated, but it's kept the old and medieval feel and theme throughout, whether it be the lobby or the individual rooms. And then it's just as beautiful at night when it's lit up. So you'll have plenty of time to explore the castle grounds. This is going to be the location of our farewell dinner. So it'll be our last dinner together, a great way to wrap the trip up on a good note. And then, as much as all of you did probably fall in love with Ireland, because again, it is such a great country. The people are fantastic. So much history, so much culture, so much natural beauty. We do have to bring you back. It is a company policy. We've got to bring you back at the very end of the trip. But hopefully you're coming back with, yes, I always say, you'll take hundreds and hundreds of pictures. You'll get back and you'll be like, there's a picture of a rock. I have no idea what this rock meant at the time, but I'm sure it was significant. The more important thing to come back with are the memories, because those are the things that really stick with you and stand the test of time. Pictures, they get lost, they get deleted, they get poofed into the cloud, but those, memories are the things that really do stick with you throughout. And as a company, we've been taking people all over the world, 104 years now, and we understand that, travel is not the most fun part of the trip. It's the case of the industry. Nobody ever likes traveling, but at least as a company, we want to make sure that, we make things as easy for you as possible. So one thing that we do is a hometown pickup. So we actually come out there locally. We pick up right at the center and take you to and from the Detroit airport, which is the gateway that we're using for this tour. So you do not have to worry about getting yourself to the airport, bugging somebody to take you and drop you off, or having to pay for airport parking. I'm local here in the Cleveland area, so I use Cleveland Hopkins. I know that parking on site is anywhere between $15 and $18 a day. Even off site is about $13 a day. And for 1 week trip, that's an expense that really does start to add up, and you don't think about it until you have to incur it on the back end. So with us, it's no fuss, no muss, no hassle. You just kind of start relaxing right from when you leave locally. So I want everyone to know exactly, all right, what's my money getting me? What exactly is included in the price of this tour? And this tour is very, very, very nicely priced. I mean, where can you find an 8-day tour in Ireland for under $2,500? And that's including airfare from Detroit, first class hotels, accommodations, a good portion of your meals are included, a dedicated tour manager, local step-on guides from time to time, any admission fees, your hometown pickup, all of your in-country transportation, transfers from the airport to the hotel, and then hotel to hotel baggage handling. So it is a very inclusive price. We're not a nickel and dime company. If you are interested in signing up, the price for a double, so that means 2 people sharing a room, is $23.98. If you are going as a solo, the single supplement isn't too bad on this one. You know, with cruises, a lot of the times you see a single is basically double the initial price. With us, couple $100 upgrade if you are traveling as a solo. If you are planning on doing a single room, I do recommend getting signed up sooner rather than later, because single rooms are on a limited first come first serve basis. The same goes for triples. The price for a single is $27.48. For a triple is $23.68. Now, if you are interested in getting signed up, I will go over how to do so a little bit later on. It's a $600 deposit, and that just goes towards paying off your final fare, plus insurance if you'd like to get the travel insurance, which is $399 per person. The nice part about both the insurance and the deposit is they're fully refundable up until September 22nd. I apologize. I forgot to update that date on there. Just disregard the December 2nd on there. It is September 22nd is the refund date. The deposits are due by September 15th. Once that September 22nd date hits, that's when your travel insurance starts kicking in and actually working for you. And our travel insurance is a little bit different than the typical insurance that you might be used to, in that it allows our guests to literally cancel for absolutely any reason. We call it the bad hair day policy, because, you know, even if you're having quote unquote a bad hair day, it doesn't matter. You can cancel. And when you cancel with us, we're not issuing, you know, a travel voucher or future travel credits, none of that. When our guests cancel with us, we issue a full cash refund, however they paid us. In fact, there's been numerous write-ups in Travel Weekly over the course of the pandemic of our response as a company. We refunded over $170 million of client money over the pandemic. We just felt like, you know, we don't deserve our clients' money until they actually have a chance to travel and experience what a Collette tour is all about. So in addition to it being, you know, no worries travel protection, it also covers you while you're on tour. So it covers medical, lost baggage, trip delay, trip interruption, theft, evacuation, you name it. We make sure that we have all the stops in place with the travel insurance. And to be honest, I just think with a trip of this magnitude, it's a lot better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. For those of you that did raise your hand that were familiar with Collette, either you've heard of us before, or maybe you've traveled with us through the center or through another group, whatever the case is, we do have a loyalty program. So how it works is, think about when your previous trip was with us. If this trip falls within 12 months of that previous trip, you do get an extra $150 off per person. If the trip falls within 24 months, you get an extra $100 off per person. So a couple $100 discount per couple. You know, you think about it, that's a couple of real nice meals, a couple of extra souvenirs while you're in country. So every little savings helps, and it's just a way of us saying thank you for your loyal travels over the years. So just a little bit of housekeeping things to wrap up here, and then I will open it up for questions. You do need a passport. We are going over the pond, so if you don't have a passport right now, no worries. You have plenty of time to get one. If you do have a passport, just double check on it to see when exactly it expires. The passports do need to be valid for up to 6 months beyond the travel date to the destination country. So if you do have a passport, take a look, see when it expires. If you need to renew it, no worries. You've got plenty of time to do so. So how exactly do I sign up for this tour? You can do it one of two ways. Danielle should have flyers with the reservation form on them. If not, let me know. I can email you a reservation form as well. Or if you're semi-comfortable and tech savvy, you can go right on directly to the trip's website. So we have a personalized web link and website specifically for this group. You click on this link, and I actually included the link in the chat as well, just to make sure that everyone does have a copy of the link. When you click on this link in the top left-hand corner of the screen, there's going to be a sign up now button, and that'll take you right through the sign up process. It'll get all of your passport information, your, name as it appears on your passport is the most important part of that form. So no nicknames or anything, because that's the name we use when we go and start ticketing with the airlines. And speaking of the airlines, we are using Detroit as the home gateway for this. If you have family or friends that maybe are coming from a distance, maybe they're out of state, they'd like to join us, but they're not, Detroit would not be their home gateway, they can still sign up for the trip. When they go and fill out the form, there's a section for Air Gateway. Just have them put the airport that's closest to them, and we'll get them pricing and everything from their local airport. So they don't have to worry about, being local there in Bowling Green. We can still bring them along with us. They'll just have a different flight schedule. And in terms of our flight schedule, the fact that we're flying out of Detroit, we can usually get some pretty good flight schedules, especially going to Dublin. With me in Cleveland, it's a little bit tougher. Cleveland Hopkins being a smaller airport, we're typically stopping over at least once, if not twice. We're able to, get a lot better, direct flights or just one short stop when it comes to leaving from Detroit. But we'll have our flight schedule as we get a little bit closer to departure, once we actually have an idea how many people are booked and signed up for the trip. So at this time, I can open it up to any questions that y'all might have, either on Collette, on the trip in general. Let her rip.